Why have only one pudding cup for lunch when you could have 3 pudding cups for lunch? And why have only one terribly written romance in your show when you could have 3 terribly written romances in your show? Hello, I'm Jacob Chimera, and welcome to the anime Lookback at Winter 2017. Some may call Seiren a coming-of-age story. Others may call it a young romance. But I prefer to call it what it is. Melodramatic teen bullshit. Seiren centers around Shoichi Kamita and his romantic relationships with 3 different girls. 4 episodes are dedicated to each respective girl. Tsuneki Hikari, Miyami Toru, and Tono Kyoko. After their 4 episodes are up, the show resets and the romance you just spent 4 episodes watching never existed. Because that's what people want, right? To know that what they just watched didn't happen and was a huge waste of time. Here's my first problem with Seiren. I had no idea what was going on. Now, I shouldn't say that exactly, cause I followed the romance story more or less, but the way everything is framed and the way the chronology of the show works is it's a bit awkward and it really throws you off balance. There's references and suggestions that things which happened in a previous story arc also occurred in the past of the current story arc, but it's very clear that each arc is its own standalone story with its own ending. My only thought is that the show's tendency to mention things that happened in the past, despite the fact they have no relation or bearing on the current story, is that they're going for some kind of Bioshock Infinite motif with constants and variables between each alternate timeline. Make dated reference to favorite video game. Check. Now, the show's intent isn't to tell a single cohesive story, which in and of itself doesn't bother me. What does bother me is that it's extremely distracting how each previous relationship is treated as if it never existed, yet there are constant references to those previous relationships. The second problem I have with this show is that every single character is terribly written. Now, I know that I throw around the phrase bland generic protagonist a lot, but trust me when I say that Shoichi makes white bread look dynamic and interesting. He's so bloody forgettable I had to look up his name while writing this review, despite the fact I've watched every single episode of Seiren. Shoichi barely even appears in the opening theme of the anime. He shows up once, at the end, for less than 2 seconds, and that is it. What kind of main character doesn't even show up in his own opening? Seriously, half these girls on the title screen don't even appear in most of the episodes. Yet for some reason, the main character who has the largest body of screen time gets only 2 seconds. Why? Moving on, the 3 female leads are best described as archetypes, which is me being generous. Each appears to be there only to check a box on a list of romantic cliches, rather than to serve as a fully realized independent character. Do you want a story about the popular girl that falls for the nerd? Tsuneki will take care of that. Do you want to see a nerdy girl get it on with a nerdy guy? Here comes Miyame. Do you want to see a couple of childhood friends become something more? Well, no worries, because Tono has arrived. These are love stories that have been told dozens of times already, and these aren't even good renditions of those love stories. This show has a whole slew of side characters, and many of them have some story of their own going on. But the problem is, each of them gets so little focus that when the show does cut to them, it doesn't feel like the continuation of something. It feels jarring and confusing. And it certainly doesn't help that all the dialogue in the show sounds like it was written by a 3rd grader. It may partially be the fault of the group doing the subtitles, but I honestly can't imagine that that's the only reason the conversations have such an awkward feel to them. The third problem with this series is the romance, or rather, lack thereof. You see, a good romance shows 2 characters learning more about each other and growing steadily closer together. Shows such as My Love Story or Love Chinibyo and Other Delusions are great because the characters get together and you see their relationship progress. Meanwhile, Seiren sucks because there is no romantic progression and no character progression either. The premise of showing a young man going through 3 different relationships isn't a bad idea, but I would have preferred the continuity of each relationship be retained so we can see Shoichi grow and mature. Maybe the first relationship could be some little middle school thing that isn't even really a real relationship. Then the second could have been his first high school girlfriend, and then the last could have been a long-term committed relationship. I would have enjoyed watching that. Instead, we get 4 episodes of characters dancing around each other, refusing to say how they feel. Then just when they start being honest with each other, and it seems like a real romance is going to start, the show hits the reset button and Shoichi regresses back to his original state. The 4th problem is that even if the romances had been well written, they still wouldn't have worked out. By cramming 3 separate unrelated relationships into a single 12-episode series, you aren't gonna have the time needed to develop those relationships. Shoichi only actually ends up dating the last girl because each story arc has to rush an ending with them not getting together for some stupid reason. If the relationships had each been given maybe 6 or 8 episodes apiece, I can see this maybe working out, because a bit more of the meat of their relationship would have been experienced. Seiren is not a good romance. Besides having terribly written characters, painful dialogue, and a horribly executed premise, this show falls down for one simple reason. They never show a real relationship. To me, the beauty of a romance is about seeing the characters have a relationship that progresses forward. Seiren does not do that. Now, it's okay to show the characters dancing around the issue of liking each other for a while, but when that's the only thing that ever gets shown, it isn't entertaining. It's annoying. So even if you are a fan of romance, this is one anime you don't want to go anywhere near.